Hello, I'm Pockets here, back with another EVE Online video. Welcome back. This is a video I'm just going to discuss my last couple of weeks since my return to EVE and just how things are going, and some thoughts I've had about EVE in general, and gaming in general, really. Mostly covering about the fact that it's okay to do things casually, and not everything has to be executed perfectly to be fun or productive or even profitable, especially in EVE Online. Lately I've been playing Diablo 4 as well, and a lot of discussion around your build isn't optimal, and the order you're doing things isn't optimal, but at the end of the day, the key is I'm having fun, and that's all that really should matter. And that's what I'm really going to talk about today, is just looking at some footage of the last couple of weeks. I've been chilling out. I haven't had the time to play as much as I would normally like, but I still got some stuff done and had a good time doing it, and even made a little bit of ISK. So I started off the week, I took out one of my favorite ships, the Confessor, and I just did some high-sec ratting. I mostly ran Serpentis dens, refuges, a couple of the Forlorn sites when I came across them. The idea was just to get in space and just knock off some more of the rust, get back into the habit of looking for things and doing things. So you can see here just kind of grinding through the site. Now, typically, high-sec ratting is considered a much lesser activity in EVE. I mean, even compared to level 4 mission running, it's something a lot of people don't seem to do a lot of. And I can understand that. There's a lot of time you spend in this for usually fairly little ISK gain, although we will look at a few things here in a minute. The nice thing about them is they're quick, they're easy, they're not overly taxing on the mind. You can just kind of take a ship that you like, fly around, and clear sites. They're not gated, so you can take any ship into them. You don't need to do them in a Confessor. You can do many of them, maybe not the Forlorns, and the dens can get a little hairy, but you can do even dens in a frigate, well-fit frigate, etc. Or if your skills are a little lesser and you need the extra little bit, you can run them in a cruiser. But usually I don't use a cruiser. I prefer my Confessor because it clears them quite well. And because of their speed, I can travel between sites and between systems a little faster than you can in a cruiser. Doing them in a Tech 2, like an assault frigate, is also kind of fun. Can be a lot of fun. So let's take a look at some of the things you hunt for. So again, on the ISK side, one of the big things, or the main sources of income from these, is your rat bounties, where every 15 or so minutes the game looks at all the rats that you've killed and gives you a payout based on the quality of those rats. In this one particularly, I managed to rack up on average about 1 million ISK every 15 minutes. Now that's not amazing. It's 1 million ISK in 15 minutes, right? Like that's only 4 million ISK an hour. But for an activity where I'm just maybe watching Netflix or chatting with folks on Discord and just being undocked, almost passive. I mean, not quite, but almost passive, as easy as it is. To make 1 million ISK in 15 minutes is not terrible. And for a newer player running, maybe if they can get a well-fit frigate to run the refuges, 500,000 ISK every 15 minutes, 2 million ISK an hour, that can be a lot for a newer player. Another source of income from these ratting sites are hunting down Shadow Serpentis rats. So if you see a Shadow Serpentis rat spawn in the wave on one of the sites, you kill it and loot it, and you have a chance at some pretty good loot. In this particular site, I managed to grab an implant worth about 25 million. So when you add that to the value of the rats themselves, the Shadow Serpentis rats are typically worth a little more as well in the 20-minute ISK payout. But yeah, if you can happen to get something like an implant, you can get faction ammo, the modules. There's all sorts of little tidbits that you can pick up along the way that can add up to a fair amount of ISK. The other two things you can do with ratting sites are salvaging. I don't typically salvage ratting sites, as the ships are often not really worth it, but if you're doing industry and you want some bits, it might be worth your time to go and get them, although buying from the market might end up being cheaper as far as an ISK per hour sort of measure, but it is a thing you can do. Come back out in a salvage ship and salvage up the wrecks. And the last thing are escalations. I didn't do any escalations this time around. I do already have a video up about escalations, so if you'd like to see that, I'll try to link it in the video or in the description of the video. If I do forget, let me know, and I will get you a link for my videos from about 3-4 years ago doing escalations. At some point I will probably update them and do new ones, but until then those old ones are still relevant as far as I know. And that's it. That's kind of what I did for the ratting. The other thing I did over the course of the last couple of weeks was I tried out some Shadow War stuff. So I started by looking at data sites. This is the first one I did. Neither of them went perfect. Both of them were, I would consider, a success. And this is just another instance of things don't have to be perfect and don't have to be executed perfectly well in order to have fun. So I'm just finishing up the scan, and then I'm going to warp to the site. These sites do require you to go into suspect status. So once you enter the sites, you get flagged, and anybody can shoot at you without repercussions. So I set my safety to yellow to allow me to slide the gate and take on the suspect flag. And we'll just run this site for a second. So I get onto the gate here shortly, and you can see here I'm checking D-scan almost continuously. You can see it flashing every few seconds. Again, because there are 4 people in system, and these sites only allow pirate and T1, like faction and T1 frigates into them. So anything coming in is going to be frigate. So if I see on D-scan anything other than a frigate, I'm not too worried. So we get onto the grid. There are rats. So when you land on the grid, you do have to contend with some rats. My understanding is you can kill all but one of the crows and the next wave won't spawn. So I start by heading towards one of the cans, and then I lock up all the rats. In a few seconds here, I am going to drop my drones out. And you can always see on the right side, my D-scan is going to ping continuously. I am looking for frigates, as I said. Drones are out and targeting the first rats. I'm going to try to kill everything but the one crow. I'm a little slow getting my drones to switch to the next rats. Chalk that up to just out of practice, but once again, everything's still going all right. We did see another person jump in on local, maybe even 2. I'm still having fun, even though it's not perfectly executed. However, I am fighting off the rats and now orbiting one of the cans. So at some point I will lock that up. Continuing to ping D-scan, still nothing. Currently you see I'm scanning at 1 AU. I do eventually switch that up, so I'm scanning a little further out to give me a little more heads up. So you can see now that another wave spawned, even though I was still fighting the first wave, so I'm not entirely sure what triggered it. Apparently that's not supposed to happen. I think maybe it's the second wave you killed all but the last crow, but I haven't done enough sites to actually nail that down, so I'll have to take a look at that. But you can see here, the tank's holding, this thing, the fight's going my way, killing all the rats, just going to go back through the rest of them here while trying to hack a can. Eventually, I do get comfortable with the number of the rats on grid, and I bring up my first hack, and I start hacking the can. Again, every so often pinging D-scan and taking a look to see if there's anything scary on scan. Still at 1 AU, I do eventually up that to get a better view. We'll see that here shortly. And there I'm remembering to switch my drones to the next target. Realistically, if I kill 2 more, I should be able to ignore the last one. We'll see how that goes. Just going through the hacking. I know the rule of 6 and all that. I don't necessarily follow it. I kind of go by gut instinct a lot of the time with my hacking. So I'll, click on the node and just go from there. Each node sort of telling me where to go next. I do sometimes, if I don't have any sort of idea, head for the groups of 6 and like the one surrounded by 6. But for the most part, I go by gut, and it tends to work out just fine. So we do get that cam. We loot it up. Make a little bit of ISK potentially, although not if we convert it. You can see now my drones are now fighting the last rat. But I do recall them. So they come back. Now we have the last rat, and we don't have any more spawns. And still D-scan is clear, so I continue hacking. This hack ends up being quite easy. Get the can open, grab a little more of the loot for the event. And then as we head over to the third can, you can see I increased my scanning radius out to 5 AU, and I do see a cruiser on D-scan. Now, again, cruisers can't come into this site, so I don't panic, and I continue on as I was, hacking the third can. Staying nice and calm, checking D-scan every once in a while just to make sure nothing changes, and we continue progressing the site, crack the can, and open it up and get the loot. And so it continues for a couple more cans. We keep watching D-scan, no more rats spawning, we hack the can and grab the loot. Now we head on to something a little more exciting. Just as we're heading towards our next can, you can see Federation Navy Comet on the D-scan. So I dropped my drones, getting ready to put them on that last frigate. I check my D-scan to 1, see that he is within 1 AU, which means he's likely on or coming towards the gate. So I press F, I quickly send my drones after that frigate, and then align to a station. Holding ground, I'm not panicking yet. I am warp scrammed, so I can't get off the grid just yet, but the drones are doing their job. Still no sign of the Comet on the grid. Now that the frigate is down, I recall the drones. They're headed on their way home. Now that they're in, I just hold, no panicking. He's not on grid yet, and I'm aligned, so at the first sign of trouble, I can get off. I do end up clicking just as he arrives on grid. Boom. So there we go. Pretty sure he was coming in to kill me. There was a chance the pilot was Galente and maybe not going to attack me, but because they wouldn't know exactly what's going on until they land on grid and check who I am. But, low sec and null sec exploration reflexes kicked in. I got off grid and docked up with all of our loot. Got about half the site done. So went all right in the end there. A little bit of a rocky start, but finished up strong. So later in the week, I decided to try a second site, once I had a chance to sit at the computer. This one was interesting as well in that I just could not get the rats to stop spawning. I'm not entirely 100% sure what I did wrong. Maybe one of you folks will see what I did. I began hacking the can even when there are still some crows on the grid, and I'll say I still have D-scan set to 1 AU. I did this just to keep the screen clear. Anything outside of that, at the 5 AU and greater, there was a bunch of mining ships, there were a bunch of mobile depots, some cans, that sort of thing. So I wasn't going to see necessarily anything pop in at that range. So I kept it down at 1 AU where it was clear, and I would just keep an eye on it a little more closely. And then you can see, just as I was about to finish up the second to last rat from the first wave, a whole new wave spawned. And I'm not entirely sure what happened, but from here for the rest of the site, I just kept having spawn after spawn. Eventually I did get it under control, but it was a little bit rough there for a bit. I'd have to stop scanning or stop hacking and fight some rats while also keeping an eye on D-scan. So the site became quite a mess. So here we are, wave number 6, and for this one I've decided to leave the final 2 rats just to see if I can stem the tide of these waves, and it does end up working. So from here I just managed to hack the rest of the cans, get all the loot, and go home. So not a bad haul for a single data site, 12 million ISK. Now I just got to figure out exactly what to do with all this stuff and how to turn it into useful materials for the Shadow War event, to be done soon. But that is for another video. Hope you guys enjoyed the look at my weeks 3 and 4 of my return to EVE, taking a look at some Shadow War sites. And yeah, let me know in the comment section down below what you think. And yeah, in the next few videos, I'll look at some of the combat sites and maybe look at turning some of these materials we get from the event into hand-ins. So stay tuned for that. As always, thank you for watching, take care of each other, and I'm out of here.